May it never come undone under the strain of the storms of life. May it sit lightly and pleasantly upon you, that you may walk through life hand in hand, mind with mind, and heart to heart.
So for us, this is a really simple thing where people get to make a promise to each other.
We join two hands over the anvil as blacksmith would weld two pieces of metal together.
We are offering couples an alternative to the traditional religious ceremony.
There was a lot of people starting arguments about identity.
I would really encourage a bit of nuance in automatically assuming that rituals have to be associated with religion. That's not the case by any means.
Some of this Celticness, it's very misty-eyed, it's not very well researched.
There's a lot of things that are at odds with each other about it. Is it a knot that's difficult to untie, or is it only valid for a year and a day? Some people have very firmly held ideas about hand fasting, but it's important to know that those are not universally shared. My name's Aglaya, aka Chio or Ceotha, and I make hand fasting cords.
At Ceotha Studio, a growing team of artisans has been working and championing the tradition of hand fasting by reimagining what hand fasting cords can look like and crafting bespoke cords that tell their clients stories of love and connection.
The very first hand fasting cord design that I made was called just a Celtic love knot hand fasting cord. And I'd come up with this very particular way of making this knot work and have two colors meet in the middle and then have a third color run all the way through. I think this was like after maybe 2 years or 2 or 3 years, I noticed that someone had made the same cord with very slightly different materials, but the exact same concept. They had done the knot in the exact same way. And then the way they described it was, this is a traditional hand fasting cord, like two colors meet in a Celtic love knot and a third color representing the couple runs all the way through. And that's all fine and well, but what bothered me was that they were saying it was a traditional hand fasting cord.
Ceotha's design process is unique, emerging out of Aglaya's own engagement with Celtic design, as well as the preferences of Ceotha's clients. But the studio's work is also part of the growing modern popularity of this age-old practice. When it comes to guiding people through the symbolism of tying the knot, a key role is played by celebrants.
Do you find that couples, when you mention hand fasting as an option, do you find that couples typically know what it is, or do you?
Not at all.
Yeah.
No, it's something that very much requires an explanation of why would we want to do that. It's either they're very clued up in it and this is their dream to have this, or it needs a little of the meaning behind it. But I think it's when you explain the meaning, but also tell them then how you can personalise that hand fasting as you see all the variants of it, and whether it can be colours, tartans, little tokens can be tied onto it. Before they know it, it's something so personal to them, and then they're even more excited than they originally were.
We don't know what hand fasting at its conception looked like. There's the closest thing we have to kind of like a look at what happened in the past is the fact that in Scotland there's been a continued tradition of people using strips of tartans for their hand fastings. However, we know that hand fasting is older than tartans. Right? So there must have been something before then that was used for hand fasting. I think there's 2 reasons why hand fasting has become so popular. One reason is that it's been in a lot of TV shows, and it's just gained more exposure. so people know about it more. I believe it's been in Game of Thrones. It's definitely been in Outlander.
I don't want to say the Outlander effect, but there is a small Outlander effect.
It has come to mind. It has, yeah.
And it does showcase it, doesn't it?
And generations before that, this is where we've shown our age, Braveheart. They were hand-fasted in there as well.
Oh, really? Yeah.
But I think the other reason that it is so versatile, that it's such an equal ritual between two people, that you can take it and make of it what you want, and that you're not expressing allegiance to any particular religion or philosophy. At the very core, all you're doing with a hand fasting cord is you commit yourself to your partner. And that's something that's a blank canvas for people to make it their own.
To understand hand fasting as a Scottish tradition, it is important to understand its relationship to specific places and landscapes. One of the places that stands as a landmark in the history of hand fasting is Gretna Green.
I'm Susan Houston, family director of Gretna Green. The building that we're sitting in at the moment has been part of my family for 4 generations. It was my great-grandfather that bought the farm in the area of which the blacksmith shop was on the land that he bought. It became a wedding venue because we're right on the border Scotland-England, and at the time that it became popular was because of the change of the age of couples that could be married without parental consent. It was 21 in England and 16 in Scotland, and the blacksmith shop sitting at the top of the village here was the first building that they came upon as they fled over the border, which is just about half a mile from here at the moment. And at that time, any of the professions, like being a blacksmith, was recognised as someone who could marry you. We do quite a lot of hand fastings now because obviously that was the tradition of old before more formal marriages became in the format that they are today. But Gretna Green is very important in that because it's all part of the love, the tradition, the mystique, the magic.
So Gretna Green, because the idea is that in England you couldn't get married and you needed permission, etc., you hopped across to Scotland where we were much more liberal. You know, in my head, there's some sort of rebellion against tradition that's using hand fasting, that perhaps people using hand fasting in Gretna Green is because they're rebelling against everything that they already know. So.
The running away, the adventure. The going on a whole adventure together and starting something new. Scotland really has it, especially when it comes to the mountains and the views we have here. And then when you add in the magic element, which can be in any form, it has everything to create that once in a lifetime experience for a couple.
Our tradition in Gretna Green is that we join 2 hands over the anvil as blacksmiths would weld 2 pieces of metal together. So 2 hands on the anvil, wrapped in Gretna Green tartan, hand fasting binds those 2 lives together.
It is my greatest pleasure to state that you are now legally married.
Why do people tie the knot? Where does hand fasting come from? Are there rules surrounding who can do it and how it should be done?
Traditions are invented, right? Every tradition is invented. And with every iteration of a tradition, with every time we practice a tradition, we change it a little bit, right? And sometimes we change it a lot. Sometimes we have a really cool idea to bring something into it, and then that becomes part of the tradition going forward. And I think that's what I'm hoping to achieve with the hand fasting cords that I'm making, is not to kind of change the definition of what a hand fasting cord looks like, but to contribute to people reimagining what hand fasting is. I saw something the other day on Etsy where someone was marketing hand fasting cords, and they had written patented all over them. What they were suggesting in their imagery was that they had patented the whole concept of tying the knot. And that, I think that's quite scary.
My name is Dr. Alyssa Ghosh. I earned my PhD from the University of Edinburgh in social anthropology, and I am now a lecturer in religious studies and decolonial thought at the School of Divinity at the University of Edinburgh. The question of how rituals become tradition and how or if rituals are fixed or evolved are in some ways obviously very connected, but also two separate questions.
I've made it and now I don't stop.
Just like any game of telephone where you pass on a message, you pass on a tradition or a ritual. And in each kind of iteration of that tradition or ritual, via necessity, via just human memory, there's going to be a myriad of changes.
If there is anything Celtic or Scottish in handfasting, then I think that it is free to be shared and that it is free to be done in whatever way works best for you. I don't believe there's any particular evidence, archaeologically or historically, of handfasting being practiced by Celtic people. That doesn't mean that they didn't do it. However, it is widely assumed to be Celtic, and I think that is really interesting. But how exactly it fits into Scottish identity or Celtic identity tied into Scottish identity, I think that's the mystery.
The living history of handfasting has its roots and traditions older than Gretna Green, thought by many to be connected to a distant Celtic past. At the Scottish Crannog Centre, a physical recreation of this pre-Christian Celtic past also allows visitors to participate in a handfasting ceremony.
My name is Claire Mullen. I work here at the Scottish Crannog Centre as a museum interpreter. The Crannog Centre basically explores life in the early Iron Age. We're talking about 600 BC, mostly a lot of our work based on the archaeological finds from the Oakbank Crannog, which is just down the road at a little village called Fernan, but about 100 metres into the water. So I am a modern pagan practitioner. The handfastings that we're conducting here, I suppose based on the original idea of a handfasting in Scotland, which was a sort of a practice marriage. The idea was that you sort of made a little promise to each other and then lived for a year and a day together. And if you were still happy with each other after that, you got married. This is a really simple thing where people get to make a promise to each other about how they're going to live together for the next year. A few people treat it as a sort of a renewal of their vows, that sort of a thing. I have a little verse that I say and then have them make some little promises to each other and declare them handfasted. That's it. It's a very, very simple thing. This cord is not the tie that binds you. What binds you are the promises you will make to each other. Then I declare you joined.
It was actually quite emotional, I thought.
It was quite emotional.
Because I think everything she was saying was the kind of things we feel anyway, personally, and like about being best friends and helping each other through everything and laughing together and stuff like that. That's very us. I think we have that kind of relationship, so it felt very affirming, actually.
Some people have very firmly held ideas about handfasting, and I think that's great. Like I think you can believe about handfasting what you want to believe, and you can make it what you want to make it for yourself. But it's important to know that those are not universally shared. seeing people talk about hand fasting in the comments and realizing how, I wouldn't say necessarily misinformation, but like the breadth of information that is out there and all these different opinions that people have about hand fasting, some of which seem to be felt quite strongly. I think that is really fascinating. There was a lot of people starting arguments about Celtic identity, about this, often questions about whether hand fasting is an open or closed practice, which is, I think it's good that those questions are asked, because it's very important that, like we live at a time where we're starting to become more conscious of not wanting to appropriate other cultures.
Cultural appropriation has really become a term that you hear frequently in the last maybe 10 years. And it is an important one. It's important to take seriously. But I think there's a lot that's sort of missed in the conversation. Cultural appropriation, firstly, shouldn't take culture as a singular bounded entity that isn't open to fluidity and evolving and changing, right? That's just how history and time work. And I think appropriation is also not synonymous with ownership.
I don't think people need to worry about cultural appropriation with hand fasting at all. If you're worried about it, maybe think about the imagery that you use during it. But for the most part, I think you can absorb it into whatever your culture is. I would love to see hand fastings with Sikhs with fantastic turbans, or, maybe some African music in the background. Hand fasting is it's an expression of people's love, of wanting to share something, and I think that transcends all culture. So no, absolutely no bother with cultural appropriation.
I think it's so intuitive a ritual that it may well have originated in loads of places.
I don't see that hand fasting is a specifically Scottish practice, although I have seen it written about in books as being a Scottish thing that Scottish people did. I think the awareness of that has shifted to something that is a wider pagan practice, because you hear it from English pagans as well. It's happening everywhere. But even English pagans love a bit of Celtic mysticism.
Symbolism of any kind can play an incredibly important role for people to connect with something like a sense of belonging. I think it's important for us to really bring across this point that it is for everyone. And through designing and redesigning our rituals, we also reinvent tradition. Different communities will have different traditions around it, but there's no right or wrong way of doing it. Celtic folklore and Scottish culture particularly, to me, are all about sharing your culture and are all about letting other people appreciate, as well. There's no rules around the tradition of hand fasting. I think people are having more and more unique weddings. People are getting more confident to express themselves in their weddings or commitment ceremonies, and hand fasting is just perfect for that.
Hand fasting is many things to many people. It is an expression of love. It is a way of symbolising identity, connection, and change. It is deeply rooted in tradition and the specificity of certain times and places. Yet, where other traditions may exclude or marginalise, it is inclusive, open, and accepting. It is part of a living history of love, and everyone who chooses to tie the knot becomes a part of this history.